Hi, folks. I'm Wound Care Karen. I love being a nurse and I have a passion for wound care. I want to inspire nurses, educate patients, and have a little fun along the way. Now, today's episode is specifically for nurses or anyone who knows a nurse, because today we're going to talk about the Nurses Honor Guard. It's a ceremony provided at a nurse's funeral or memorial service to thank her or him for their service. Now, it's very near and dear to my heart because I've had the honor of being a volunteer member of the San Antonio Nurses Honor Guard since its inception a few years ago. So today I'm very honored to introduce my special guest. Her name is Julia Murray, and she's been instrumental in promoting and advising and coordinating Nurses Honor Guards all across America. So welcome, Julie, and thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Well, I have to say thank you to Karen, because anytime I can get the word out about the Nurses Honor Guard and spread the message and get new groups started, I'm happy to do it. So thank you for having me.
That's great. And I agree, because honestly, every service I attend, I hear from everyone, we never knew about this. We didn't know about this. And then I hope they take the word and spread it also. So I totally agree. But before we get started talking about the Nurses Honor Guard, can you tell us a little bit about you? Tell us about your nursing career.
Well, I am retired now, but it was after 41 years of working in the OR. I started as a surgical tech and went from there into nursing. And at that time, I became involved in our nurses union as well, and ended my career at the bedside in December of 2019, just before the height of the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Good timing, right?
Yes, for sure. Wow. In fact, it was pretty much the pandemic that inspired our San Antonio Nurses Guard to get started. So what was your first experience with the Nurses Honor Guard? Like, when did you hear of it, or how did you come to know it?
It was in 2011, and one of the nurses that I worked with had gone to a conference, and she saw it at this conference. And at that time, there was only one Nurses Honor Guard. In the Kansas State Nurses Association started it in 2004. And they would send one nurse anywhere in the state and do the ceremony. And then there was a hospital in Detroit that mimicked it, but they would only do the ceremony for the nurses that were employed at that hospital. Oh. And when she brought it back to my hospital, we saw it at our professional practice group. And I was so inspired when I saw that. And I said, we have to start a group. So we started our group, and then I realized we need to just take this further, because we can't just have little pockets here and there. So I started organizing. It's a little bit slowly at first, but it's gaining speed every day.
Oh, that is so awesome. And it's for all nurses, right? LVNs, RNs?
It's for all nurses. Yep.
Awesome. And it's a nonprofit, right? It's a volunteer group. Yes. Each nurse, we pay for our own uniform. And what about like cost of flowers and Nightingale lamps and other materials? What about those?
Each group has kind of done a little bit differently. Some groups will charge a membership fee, a yearly membership fee, and that offsets the cost for the lamps and the roses and such. But honestly, to get a group started, it doesn't take a lot of money. Your biggest startup cost is the brochures that you print up. So that you really rely a lot on donations from people. You've got your membership fee, which is maybe $35 a year. Usually that's what groups charge. But you get donations from grateful families who understand that we are volunteers and we rely on those donations.
Exactly.
But it doesn't take a lot of money.
No, not at all. It's just very grassroots. I love the fact that it's not, there's not copyrighted material we have to pay for. It's not, to me, it's just so very grassroots. It's from the heart. It's full of honor and dignity. And I just love it. Now, so before we talk about the actual ceremony, because I do want to get into that, can you talk first about the uniform that we put on?
So the uniform was back to the traditional white uniform, complete with a cap and a cape. And the cap was worn for many years. It started out when nuns wore their habits, and then the nuns were the first nurses. So then they eventually evolved into a cap, and it was used to keep your hair out of the way and for cleanliness. The cape was worn back in the 1800s in the Florence Nightingale times in the Crimean War. And from then on, the cape was worn to keep warm. The high neck collar on it was to keep them warm when they were in the field tending to the soldiers. The red lining, they could flip the cape back and show the red lining, and that would signify that they were medical personnel and hopefully keep them safe while they were out in the field when there was a shooting going on, so that they would be visible to be shown that they were medical.
Right.
So that's where we wanted a tradition similar to what police, fire, and military do, and their dress uniforms. And this is the closest thing that we have to a dress uniform, and it really speaks to our rich history.
I totally agree. Anytime, even just when I put it on, I just feel, I don't know, I step into history. I stand taller. My posture is stick straight. I honestly feel like a nurse, and it's unrecognizable. Anyone who sees this, they know right away that's a nurse.
Yes. So when people are getting started and I tell them, there's a feeling you're going to have when you put that uniform on and it comes over you. I'm not going to be able to explain it to you because you're going to have to feel it yourself. But what you just said is exactly the feeling. You stand very proud, and it brings back the dignity and respect that has been kind of damaged lately for nurses and all that we've been through COVID and through all the different staffing issues that we've had. So it kind of reminds us of why we're doing what we're doing. We're healers. We're healing the families, but we're also healing our own souls because we feel that. Just
Right.
what you explained. Yes.
Absolutely. 1,000%. Absolutely. So now let's talk a little bit about the ceremony. What does a typical ceremony look like?
So each ceremony is going to be a little bit different because you're going to sometimes be in a church. You might be in a funeral home. You could be at graveside. I've actually done one in a bar before. You just use your critical thinking skills. You assess the situation, and that's how you do your layout. The ceremony is going to be the same no matter where you do it. It's just maybe where you line up or where you stand is going to be whatever situation you're in to do the ceremony. So we try to come from the back of the church or the funeral home or whatever when we process in with a lit Nightingale lamp, and the others follow behind. And then we line up in front, and if there's a casket, we'll flank that casket, or if there's an urn, we'll flank the table with the urn is on. Then the nurse who's doing the speaking will get to the front, and she'll stand there and do the ceremony. It's a very short ceremony, 3 to 5 minutes is all it takes. There's a white rose that is given to the nurse. It's presented as an honor for being our colleague. And that rose can either be put on the casket, it can be put next to the urn, but if there's not a casket or an urn, you would give it to the family. After the ceremony is concluded, then we ask any nurse present to stand, and we're going to do a final roll call. So any nurses present would stand at that time, and you'll call the name of the nurse that you're honoring that day. You say their name and say, please report for duty, and then you ring a chime or a triangle. And you do that 3 times. You call their name 3 times. After the 3rd time, you say, Nurse Julie, we officially release you from your nursing duties. And sometimes you can say your colleagues will take it from here. I kind of like that. That's a little new addition that I've picked up. And it's just so moving for the families because they live our life as a nurse. They're the ones that are there for the crazy schedules, the on-call shifts, the people calling you for advice, all of the things that we experience as a nurse. Our family experience that with us, so they're very proud of us. And so this is an opportunity for them to know that their loved one was honored for that work that he or she did. Then you process out. If there is a casket, you can process out behind the casket and also flank the casket when it's loaded into the hearse as standing guard, and then you're done.
Yes. Just beautiful. The ceremony's absolutely beautiful. There's usually not a dry eye in the house.
That's true. I've had some people come up to me and say, I never cry, but you made me cry. And, sometimes we even have a few tears too. Even if we didn't know the nurse, you feel like you do know the nurse after you're done with this.
Absolutely. Especially, standing at the front, looking at the family and loved ones. And, sometimes we're first in procession, sometimes we're last. So we get to hear other people talking about the nurse that just passed. And you get to know them. Yeah, there's many a time when I choke through the Nightingale Tribute, but, other times I pull myself together and, and carry on.
So I always, people that ask me, how do you get through it? I ask them to sum up what it takes when you're working bedside and you have a patient that's crashing and you have formed a relationship with that patient. So you really care about what's happening there and you get through that. And then you have your tears or your sadness afterwards and you can do it. We've all done it and be able to put our faces back on again.
I agree. And to not be afraid to shed a tear either, because we're
That's
human
right.
also. And that's all part of nursing
Yep.
is the caring. You care for this person that passed. So yeah, I totally agree. So like I said, our local San Antonio Nurses Honor Guard was coordinated by Laura Espinoza, and her inspiration again was the pandemic. Just sitting through these times and what we've all been through, and it's just been crazy. So that is certainly what inspired her to call us to service. Have you personally noticed an increase in interest in the Honor Guard because of the pandemic?
It really did start out a little bit slow, and then as the pandemic hit, it came into full swing. And we became more aware of the death around us and the honor that we were doing to take care of those patients. And this really helps us bring back that feeling of honor to our profession, because it hit us hard.
I agree. And we lost so many nurses through the pandemic. And, I can't think of a time in recent past other than great wars,
Right.
When we lost so many of our comrades. And so, again, just another big inspiration. Is the Nurse Honor Guard, is it just in the United States or is it in other places?
It is right now, but I'm in talks with a couple of nurses from Canada. So I'm hoping to take this international. So then I will be changing the name of the National Nurses Honor Guard Coalition to the International Nurses Honor Guard Coalition. So,
oh, how exciting.
Some from Australia and also from Canada have reached out to me. So as soon as we get that settled, I will be putting that on the page for everyone to see.
Oh, that's super exciting. And I know I have some listeners in UK, Ireland, and Australia. So again, maybe they're hearing this and they'll spread the word too.
We want you.
Exactly. Yes. The more the merrier. So with our local group, San Antonio Nurses Honor Guard, so we have a website that's my job, is the website designer, and I keep it up. We have a Facebook page, and then we also had business cards made, and right on the business card there's actually a Q code, so they can just hold up their phone and that Q card links them to our website, and that's how we kind of advertise and spread the word in addition to word of mouth. But we're advertising for membership. We want other nurses to join us to do this, but we're also advertising our services to family members and loved ones and mortuary services, etc. So are there any other ideas, or have you heard any unique things of how to spread the word?
Well, for sure, your hospice houses are going to be involved in funeral planning, so they should be included as well. Your clergy, you should let them know because they may be very much involved in planning that. But also, I used to do what I call cruise the obituaries. Before the funeral directors were understanding what it was that we do, I would look at the obituaries and I'd see a name of a nurse, and then I'd call them and say, would you please offer it to the family? Once the funeral directors saw what we did, and it's no cost to the family, and how much the families appreciated it, they were on board. And when we got there, they'd have a room set aside for us to get changed in with bottled water, and they were happy to have us. So for sure you can do that. But social media is so powerful. Those Facebook pages really reach out to a lot of nurses.
Yes, absolutely. And here in San Antonio, we seem to have like large chains of mortuary services and funeral services. And you're right. Once one funeral director, hears about us and sees our ceremony, you can tell because we're also called to other facilities in their chain. So I know they're spreading the word.
With them, you need to, each state has their state association of funeral directors, and they meet annually. And I just came back from Cleveland. We did some a meeting for the funeral directors there and one in St. Louis. And then you have them all together. You do a mock ceremony. You can release Florence Nightingale from her nursing duties. Good God rest her soul. She should be released. But then they all could see it. So we had handouts for them, and we reached a lot more of the funeral directors than before, and they were excited about it. So look up your state funeral director association, call them and tell them what it is you're doing and that you'd like to present at their meeting. That's a really good way to get the word out for the funeral directors. But I still think social media for your nurses is the best way. And nurses come to the funerals of nurses, so make sure that you always have cards in your pocket to give them, because they'll want to join you once they see it. They'll be inspired just like you and I were when we saw it.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's a great idea, though, about the state funeral association. Great idea. So if a nurse is listening and he or she is interested in volunteering to be a part of the Nurses Honor Guard, I think the simplest way is they could do a simple internet search, just kind of type in Nurses Honor Guard near me. And, if they have one local, it'll pop up for sure. But if they don't have one in their area and they're inspired to start one, how do they contact you, or how do they learn more about the Honor Guard?
They can email me, and I can give you the email address. And I have a listing of where all the groups are located, and I can connect them to their closest group, or I can help them start a group. I don't publish the information on the internet with these because there's a lot of personal phone numbers and email addresses. So I like to protect their privacy with that, with all the crazy stuff that goes on in this world. So I kind of have all that, and then I can give it out to you. But all they have to do is email me, and I am happy to help anybody that wants to find a group or start one.
Right.
And I work with that group until they're up and running. I don't just give you the information and go away. We have Zoom calls, and I'm available for questions as they come up, and we work it out.
That's great. And I'll link I'll link your email address in my show notes for sure. And I thought this was so timely. I saw this, a news article, I think it popped up yesterday, April 11th, that they found some ashes. They found an urn with some ashes in it in a dumpster. I think 2 women found it, and of course, the name was on it, and they did a lookup in Ancestry, and they found out that this was a World War II nurse, and they looked up where her husband had passed away. They literally went to that cemetery, saw his stone there, and there's a place there for her. So then they coordinated with the cemetery for a free burial for those ashes. And the best part is they had the Nurse Honor Guard do a ceremony for her. Did you see that news article?
I just saw that, and it just moved me to tears. It really did. And I saw the nurses that were doing the ceremony, and I recognized them as one of the groups that I got started. So I'm so proud of them. They make me, whenever I see my groups doing something like that, I feel like one of my kids graduated. It just is so, it's awesome to me.
That's great. Yes, you should feel this way. I hope you understand that this is your legacy. Like, I'm here because of you. Like, we're all doing this because we heard about it from you. You've been shouting it from the rooftops, and you're like the little fairy godmother of the Nurses Honor Guard. And I can't think of a better time. Like, we needed this. We really needed this. So I can't thank you enough.
The North Carolina nurses call me Yoda.
I love it. That's awesome. So before we wrap up here, I'm a big Hollywood fan. I love all things entertainment and movies. So I ask this of all my guests. So if you'll bear with me, if they were going to make a movie about you, and I think they should, who would you want to star as you?
Well, that's a really tough one, Karen. But I think that I would go with Sally Field.
Ooh.
Because of the movie Norma
Ray?
Norma Ray. Because of the way she inspired people with her grassroots movement in that factory that she worked in. And that's kind of how it feels that I'm doing the same kind of shout out and trying to organize nurses. And I'm happy to do it. But I think maybe Sally Field.
I think that's great because you did that with the nurses union too, right?
I did, yes. I was have been very active in organizing nurses all over the country. So yes,
exactly. I think this is just an extension of that. That's so awesome. That's a great choice. Great choice. Well, I really can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on my little podcast, and I just really think it's great what you're doing in these really, really challenging times. So thank you so much.
And I thank you for spreading the word. And I'm hoping that some other people will hear this and let me help them get started.
Yes, I agree. All you listening out there, please join us. It's fun. You can network. There's camaraderie. And I can't think of a better service than to, properly give our loved ones a goodbye. So,
and if they want to see what it looks like, take a look at the National Nurses Honor Guard Coalition Facebook page. I post everything I can about what nurses are doing around the country, and there's video on there too that can show you what it looks like too. So
that's
a good place to start.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and I'll post that link in my show notes also. That's a great idea. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Folks, this podcast was recorded in my studio on the hill in San Antonio, Texas in April of 2023. It was produced and edited by Wound Care Karen, and I did it all while spring cleaning. The views expressed here belong to me and my guest and not our employer or affiliates. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and give me a 5-star review. If you have ideas for future podcast content, please drop me a line at contact@woundcarekaren.com or message me on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. I'm Wound Care Karen, and please remember, folks, time does not heal all wounds. So if that happens to you, please seek help from a wound care professional.